What if someone told you that you do not need to know thousands of words to speak English fluently? What if the biggest lie you were ever told about learning English is that you need years of classes, expensive teachers, and stacks of grammar books just to have a basic conversation? There is a list of only 380 words that covers over 80% of everything people say in everyday English. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which words they are, how to use them, and why most people are wasting years of their lives studying the wrong things. Stay until the end, because the last part of this video will completely change the way you think about learning English forever. Here is something that most English teachers will never tell you: language, at its core, is not complicated. Humans have been communicating for thousands of years, long before dictionaries existed, long before grammar schools were invented. Think about a small child. A 2-year-old child does not know what a subjunctive clause is. That child cannot explain the difference between present perfect and simple past. But that child can ask for food, say they are tired, tell someone they love them, and ask where something is. That child is communicating, and that is exactly what language was built to do. The truth is, the English language has over 170,000 words in the dictionary. But research from linguists at Oxford University has shown that a native English speaker uses, on average, only about 7,500 words in daily life. And when you narrow it down further to casual, everyday conversation, that number drops dramatically. Studies show that the 300 most common English words make up about 65% of all spoken English. Add just 80 more words to that list, and you are covering over 80% of everything said in a normal conversation. That is the 380-word principle, and it is not a theory, it is math. So why do so many people spend years in English classes and still cannot hold a simple 5-minute conversation? Because the system was not built to make you speak, it was built to make you pass a test. There is a massive difference between those two things. When you study for a test, you memorize grammar rules, fill in blanks on paper, and translate sentences in your head. When you learn to speak, you do something completely different. You respond, you react, you think in the language itself. One is a performance on paper, the other is a living skill in the real world. And those two things require completely different approaches. Now, before going any further, think about this for a second. How many times have you learned a new English word, felt proud, and then completely forgotten it 2 days later? That happens to almost everyone who studies English the traditional way, and the reason it happens is not because you have a bad memory. The reason is that you learned a word without a context that made it stick. You read it in a list, you wrote it 10 times, and then it disappeared. But when you learn a word inside a real moment, inside a real sentence you actually want to say, something different happens in your brain. The word connects to an emotion, to a situation, to a feeling, and that connection is what makes it permanent. Scientists call this contextual encoding, and it is the foundation of how the human brain builds long-term memory for language. This is exactly why the 380-word method works so well, because instead of starting with thousands of random vocabulary words, you start with the words that appear in every single conversation you will ever have. Words like want, need, know, feel, think, understand, come, go, take, give, help, make, tell, ask, say, see, look, find, try, and use. These are not exciting words, they are not impressive, but they are the skeleton of the English language. Without them, nothing works. With them, you can build almost anything. Let me give you a concrete example right now. Imagine you are in a restaurant in an English-speaking country, and the waiter brings you the wrong dish. Most people who studied English for years in traditional classrooms would freeze. Their brain would try to remember the grammar rule for making a polite complaint. They would search for fancy words, and in the time it takes them to do all of that, the waiter has already walked away. But someone using the 380-word method would simply say, "Excuse me, I think this is not my order. I asked for the chicken. Can you help me?" That sentence uses 8 words from the 380-word list. It is simple, it is clear, it works perfectly, the waiter understands. The problem gets solved, the conversation is done. That is real communication. That is the goal. Not to sound like a professor, not to impress anyone with complex vocabulary. The goal is to be understood. And being understood is something you can do with 380 words. Now here is something that will make you rethink everything about how language actually works in the real world. One of the most admired communicators of modern times, a man who built some of the most successful companies in history and gave some of the most watched speeches on earth, famously said that the ability to communicate a complex idea in a simple way is the most powerful skill a person can have. He was not talking about using big words, he was talking about clarity, and clarity comes from simplicity. The people who communicate best in English are not the ones with the biggest vocabulary. They are the ones who know exactly which simple words to use in exactly the right moment. This idea is not new. Winston Churchill, one of history's greatest speakers, once wrote that short words are best, and the old words, when short, are the best of all. He was right. And the 380 most common English words are almost all short. They are almost all old, and they are almost all words that your brain already partially knows, if you have been exposed to any English in your life through movies, music, travel, or the internet. And that brings up a point that many people miss completely. You have already heard most of these 380 words before. You may not have realized it, but your brain has been collecting them. Every English movie you watched with subtitles, every English song you heard, every tourist you saw speaking on the street, your brain was absorbing those words. The problem is not that you do not know them. The problem is that you have not been given permission to use them. Traditional language learning makes people feel like they are not ready to speak until their grammar is perfect. But here is the reality. Grammar fixes itself over time when you speak. Waiting for perfect grammar before speaking is like waiting to be in perfect shape before you start exercising. It does not work that way. The only way to get better is to start. Think about how babies learn their first language. They do not take a grammar class. They hear sounds. They repeat sounds. They make mistakes. People correct them gently, and they keep going. A child says, "I go to the park," instead of "I went to the park." Nobody fails that child. Nobody tells them they are not ready to speak. The correction happens naturally, and the child moves on. Adults learning English deserve the same approach. Mistakes are not failure. Mistakes are the engine of progress. Every mistake is a piece of feedback. Every awkward sentence is a building block. The brain is always learning, even when you think you are getting it wrong. So here is where things get really practical. The 380 words are divided into categories, and understanding those categories is what helps you put sentences together fast, even when you are nervous, even when you are in a real situation with a real person waiting for your answer. The first category is what could be called action words. These are the verbs that do the heavy lifting in every sentence. Go, come, take, give, make, use, know, think, say, ask, tell, help, try, want, need, feel, look, find, get, see, hear, keep, put, work, leave, bring, start, stop, show, play, call, turn, move, live, love, read, write, eat, drink, sleep, sit, stand, walk, run, open, close, pay, buy, sell, send, wait, change, happen, matter, care, mean, talk, speak, learn, remember, forget, follow, decide, believe. These words alone can carry an entire conversation. Just by knowing these verbs and how to use them in their basic form, a person can express actions in the past, present, and future without ever needing to sit down with a grammar textbook. Here's how it works in practice. If you want to say something happened in the past, you just add the word yesterday or last and change the verb slightly. I went to the store yesterday. I ate at a restaurant last night. If you want to say something is happening right now, you use the simple present or add now. I am eating now. I am looking for help. If you want to say something will happen in the future, you use will or going to. I will call you later. I am going to leave soon. 3 tiny patterns. That is all you need to cover 90% of the tenses you will ever use in a real conversation. No complicated tables. No memorizing 12 different verb tenses. No spending months on things you will almost never use in a real conversation, on a real street, in a real city. The second category is connecting words. These are the words that hold sentences together and make your speech sound natural instead of choppy and robotic. Words like and, but, because, so, if, when, before, after, while, or, also to, still, already, yet, just, even, only, other, more, most, less, some, any, every, all, both, each, few, many, much, no, not, never, always, sometimes, often, maybe, here, there, now, then, today, tomorrow, yesterday, again, very, really, quite, almost, enough. These words are short. Most of them are one syllable. But without them, sentences fall apart and communication breaks down completely. Connecting words are the glue of the language, and they are all inside the 380 word list. Here is something worth pausing on for a moment, because this tiny detail makes a huge difference. Have you ever noticed how people who speak English very naturally use the word just all the time? I just wanted to say thank you. Can you just help me for a second? I just need a minute. I just got here. That one tiny word makes English sound softer, more casual, more human. It removes pressure from a sentence. It makes requests feel lighter and more polite. It is on the list. And once you start using it, your English immediately sounds more natural to native speakers, who use it dozens of times every single day without even noticing it. The third category is describing words. These are adjectives and adverbs that help you paint a picture with your words. Good, bad, big, small, new, old, first, last, long, short, high, low, right, wrong, easy, hard, fast, slow, early, late, happy, sad, sick, tired, ready, sure, free, open, closed, real, true, hot, cold, warm, clean, quiet, loud, dark, light, different, same, important, possible, necessary, special, simple, clear, full, empty, beautiful, terrible, wonderful, serious, funny, busy, difficult, comfortable. Again, none of these words are impressive on their own. None of them will make anyone say, wow, your vocabulary is amazing. But all of them are essential. And using them correctly, in real sentences connected to real situations, is what makes communication work every single time. Now, there is something that no one talks about when it comes to learning English, and it may be the most important thing of all. It is called the emotional barrier. Because the biggest reason adults stop improving their English is not lack of vocabulary. It is not lack of grammar knowledge. It is fear. Fear of making a mistake in front of someone. Fear of sounding stupid. Fear of not being understood. And that fear is real. It is powerful. It can shut down your brain in the middle of a sentence and make you forget even the words you know perfectly well. This experience has a name: communication anxiety, and it affects millions of adult learners all over the world. The 380-word approach helps with this fear in a very specific way. When you know that you only need a small, manageable set of words to communicate, the pressure drops. Instead of walking into a conversation thinking, I need to know everything, you walk in thinking, I know the most important words, I can do this. That mental shift is enormous. It is the difference between a person who freezes and a person who speaks. And speaking, even imperfectly, is what builds confidence faster than anything else. Every time you open your mouth in English and the other person understands you, a little bit of the fear disappears. Your brain registers that as a success. And success builds more courage for the next conversation. And here's the thing. Nobody, not a single native English speaker on the planet, will ever judge you for using simple words. In fact, the opposite is true. Native speakers deeply appreciate when someone speaks clearly and simply. They get frustrated when things are overcomplicated. So using the 380-word vocabulary is not a weakness. It is a communication superpower. It is the choice to be understood rather than to impress. And being understood is always the right choice. Now stay with this thought for a moment, because what comes next is the part that most people completely overlook. And it is the real reason some people go from zero English to holding real conversations in just a few months, while others study for years and never get there. This single idea changes everything. The secret is not just knowing the words. The secret is combining the words into what language experts call sentence frames. A sentence frame is a template that gets memorized once and then filled in differently every time it is needed. Native speakers use these frames without even knowing it, every single day, in every single conversation. They are automatic. They require almost no thinking once they are learned. For example, the frame I need to is used hundreds of times a day in English. I need to go. I need to call someone. I need to find the bathroom. I need more time. I need help with this. The frame never changes. Only the ending changes. And once that frame is stored in your head as a complete unit, you can produce thousands of different sentences instantly, without stopping to think about grammar, without translating anything in your head, without hesitating even for a second. Here are some of the most powerful sentence frames, built entirely from the 380-word list. I want to. I need to. Can you help me with? I don't understand. What do you mean by? Can you say that again, please? I'm not sure, but I think. How do I get to? How much does this cost? What time does this open? Is it possible to? I would like to. Could you please? I'm sorry, I don't speak English very well, but I'm trying. Can you speak more slowly, please? Can you write that down for me? Where can I find? What is the best way to? I'm looking for. Do you have? I have a question about. Is there a? How long does it take to? These frames work in airports, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, offices, banks, and on the phone. And every single word inside every single one of them is on the 380-word list. Let's test this in a real scenario. Imagine someone needs to make a phone call to an English-speaking customer service line. This is one of the situations people fear the most. The phone is already more difficult than face-to-face conversation because you cannot see the other person's face. You cannot read their lips. You cannot use gestures. It is just voice. But with the right frames, this becomes completely manageable. The call starts. Hello. I need help with my account. The agent asks a question. I'm sorry. Can you say that again slowly, please? The agent repeats. I understand. My name is Maria, and my account number is 4578. I have a problem with my last payment. The agent asks something else. I'm not sure. Can you explain again, please? Step by step, with simple words and simple frames, the entire conversation is handled. No fancy vocabulary, no complex grammar, just the right words in the right order, used with patience and confidence. This is not a fantasy. This is how people who never took a formal English class manage to live, work, and build businesses in English-speaking countries every day. They learned the core vocabulary, they learned the frames, and they used both in real situations over and over until it became automatic. The path is clear, the method is proven. Now there is one more element that separates people who progress fast from people who stay stuck for years. That element is called input. In language learning science, input means the English you are absorbing, the English you hear, see, and read. And research by linguist Stephen Krashen, who dedicated decades of his life to studying how people acquire languages, shows that comprehensible input is the single most powerful tool in language learning. Comprehensible input means English content that you can mostly understand, with just a little bit of challenge. Not so easy that your brain stops paying attention, not so difficult that you feel lost. Just slightly above your current level, so your brain is always reaching forward. When you listen to or read English that is just slightly above your current level, your brain starts filling in the gaps automatically. It starts recognizing patterns. It starts predicting what comes next. And over time, the language begins to feel familiar. It begins to live inside you, not just as something you translate, but as something you actually think in. This is why people who watch a lot of English content, even casually, often develop better spoken English than people who study grammar in classrooms for years. The input is constant, natural, and connected to meaning and emotion. And that is how language truly becomes part of how you think. So what does this mean practically? It means that the fastest path to fluency combines study and consumption. Watch English content that you enjoy, because enjoyment keeps you coming back. Listen to English podcasts on topics that interest you, because interest makes your brain pay full attention. Read simple English stories or news articles, because reading trains your brain to recognize patterns in written form. And while you do this, notice something. The 380 core words appear everywhere, in every sentence, in every paragraph, in every conversation, because they are the foundation that everything else is built on. There is an important distinction between passive learning and active learning in language. Passive learning is when you receive language without producing it. Watching a show, listening to a podcast, reading a book, all of that is passive. It is valuable. It builds understanding and comprehension, but by itself it is not enough to make you speak. Active learning is when you produce language yourself, when you speak, write, or practice out loud. Research shows that combining both passive input and active output creates the fastest progress of all. For every hour spent watching or listening to English, spend time also practicing speaking or writing, even if it is just talking to yourself in the mirror, even if nobody else is listening. Here is a practical exercise that can be started today, right after this video ends. Take the sentence frames. Write down 10 of them in a notebook. Then, for each frame, write 5 different endings that come from your real life. For I want to write 5 things you actually want. I want to travel to New York. I want to learn more English. I want to understand movies without subtitles. I want to talk to people at work in English. I want to order food at a restaurant without feeling nervous. You have just produced 50 English sentences, every single one connected to your real life, your real wants, your real situations. Now read those sentences out loud. Do it in front of a mirror. Do it with confidence, even if you do not feel confident yet. The physical act of speaking those words, of hearing your own voice form them, is doing something important in your brain. It is building what researchers call motor memory, the same kind of memory that lets you ride a bicycle without thinking about balance. When you say a sentence enough times out loud, it stops being something you think through and starts being something you just say. That is what fluency means at its most basic level, not perfection, automaticity, the ability to produce language without stopping at every single word. And this is where consistency matters more than talent. Nobody becomes fluent overnight. There are no shortcuts that eliminate the need for real practice, but the people who make the fastest progress are not the smartest people, or the people with the most free time. They are the people who practice a little bit every single day. 15 focused minutes daily beats 3 hours every Saturday, because the brain builds language connections through repetition over time, not through marathon sessions once a week. Showing up daily, even briefly, is the most powerful thing a learner can do. There is also something worth understanding about adult learners specifically. Children have an advantage in pronunciation. When a child grows up hearing English, the sounds of the language become natural to their ears and mouth in a way that is harder to achieve as an adult. But adults have a massive advantage that almost nobody talks about. Adults have context. Adults have life experience. When an adult hears the word responsibility, they already know what that concept feels like. They have lived it. That emotional and experiential connection makes vocabulary learning significantly faster for adults than for children, who are also learning the concept at the same time as the word itself. This means you are more capable than you think. You have a brain full of knowledge, experience, and emotional intelligence. You have decades of living that give meaning to the words you are learning. All you need is the right words to express what is already inside you. And those right words for the most important conversations of your daily life are exactly the 380 words that have been the foundation of this entire video. Let's talk about pronunciation for a moment, because this is one of the biggest fears people carry. The fear that even if they find the right words, their accent will make them impossible to understand. This fear is almost always worse than the reality. Research consistently shows that how easily you can be understood depends far more on word choice and sentence rhythm than on having a perfect native accent. Millions of people around the world speak English every day with strong accents from their home countries and are understood perfectly. English today is spoken by over 1.5 billion people worldwide, and the majority of English conversations happening on Earth right now are between two people who did not grow up speaking it. The idea that you need to sound like someone who was born in London or New York is simply not true. The goal is not to sound like someone else. The goal is to be clear. That said, a few specific habits make a big difference in how easily you are understood. The first is word stress. English is a stress-timed language, meaning certain syllables and words are spoken louder and longer than others. Stressing the right syllable makes a word instantly recognizable. Stressing the wrong one can confuse even someone who knows the word perfectly. The word important stresses the second syllable. Important. The word understand stresses the last. Understand. These patterns, once noticed, are not hard to follow. They just require listening carefully to how native speakers say words. The second habit is connected speech. In natural English, words blend together in ways that surprise many learners. Do you want to sounds like digga wanna, going to becomes gonna, let me becomes lemmy, I have to becomes I have to. These blends are not lazy or incorrect speech. They are how natural English actually sounds. When you understand them while listening, your comprehension of real conversations improves enormously. When you use them while speaking, your English sounds dramatically more natural and easier for native speakers to follow. The third habit is pausing in the right places. One of the most common patterns in non-native English speech is pausing in the middle of phrases where native speakers would not stop. Putting a long pause between I and want or between can and you breaks the natural rhythm of the language and makes sentences harder to understand. Natural pauses in English come between complete ideas, not between individual words. Learning to group words into natural chunks, saying phrases as complete units, is one of the most effective improvements a speaker can make. Practice speaking in short complete phrases rather than word by word, and the change is immediate. None of these three things requires an expensive course or a native speaker teacher. They require listening and paying attention to the rhythm and music of the language. They can be practiced alone, at home, anytime, with nothing more than a phone and access to English content. There is also one practice that language learners rarely hear about, but that works remarkably well. It is called shadowing. It means listening to a sentence spoken by a native speaker, and then immediately repeating it out loud, trying to match the rhythm, the stress, the speed, the tone. When you shadow a native speaker, your brain is doing something extraordinary. It is connecting the sounds of the language with the meaning, with the feeling, with the physical act of producing speech. Over time, those connections become automatic. The rhythm of English begins to live in your body, not just in your mind. To practice shadowing, find a short piece of English audio, maybe a 1-minute clip from a simple podcast or a short video. Listen 3 times without repeating anything. Just absorb. Then listen again, this time pausing after every sentence and repeating what was just said, trying to match the speaker as closely as possible. Do this for 10 minutes a day. Within a few weeks, the improvement in how you speak will be clear, not just to you, but to anyone who listens to you. Now, thinking back over everything covered here, there is a single idea at the very center of all of it. Simplicity is not a limitation. Simplicity is a strategy. The people who communicate most effectively in any language are the ones who say what they mean, with the fewest words possible. The people who struggle are the ones waiting for the perfect sentence before they open their mouth. But the perfect sentence never comes while you are waiting. It comes while you are speaking. It comes through practice, through repetition, through the daily habit of trying and adjusting and trying again. Language is a living thing. It was built for imperfection. It was built for moments when you forget the exact word and use a simpler one instead. It was built for pauses and restarts, and I'm not sure how to say this, but every person you will ever talk to in English has done all of those things, including professors and doctors and people who speak English every day for a living. They all pause. They all simplify. They all choose words in the moment, not from a memorized script, and the conversations still work. The meaning still gets across. The connection still happens. The idea that language learning is only for the young, or only for the talented, or only for people with a lot of free time, is one of the most harmful beliefs in education. People in their 50s, 60s, and beyond learn new languages every year. They do it slowly. They do it with patience. They make mistakes and move forward. And they reach a point where they can have real conversations, understand real movies, and connect with people from a completely different part of the world. That kind of connection, reaching across the space between two languages and two people and two cultures, is one of the most deeply human experiences there is. And the door to that experience is not locked behind years of study. It is right here. It is 380 words that can be learned one category at a time. It is 10 sentence frames that can be practiced tonight. It is 15 minutes of listening to English content tomorrow morning. It is the decision, made once and followed every day, to move toward the language instead of waiting for the language to come to you. The people who learn English fastest are not the ones who find the best course. They are the ones who fall in love with the process. The ones who feel proud when they understand a sentence in a show without needing the subtitles. The ones who smile when they think of something in English before translating it from their first language. Those small moments of joy are fuel. They keep a person going. On the days when progress feels slow, when the goal feels far away, when the motivation is harder to find, and the goal is never as far as it seems. Because fluency is not a wall you suddenly climb over. It is a road you walk down, one step at a time. And every step matters. Every word learned matters. Every sentence practiced matters. Every conversation attempted, however short, however imperfect, however terrifying in the moment, matters. Because each one takes you further, and one day, sooner than you think, you will look back and realize that you are already speaking English. Not perfectly, not like someone who grew up with it, but clearly, confidently, in a way that other people understand and respond to and genuinely connect with. You do not need to wait until you are ready. You are ready now. You have always been ready. The only thing standing between you and a real English conversation is the belief that you are not good enough yet. And that belief is wrong. You have the tools. The 380 core words are learnable. The sentence frames are usable today. The daily habits of listening and speaking are available to anyone, anywhere, with a phone and 15 minutes, and the decision to begin. The language is not waiting for the perfect version of you. It is waiting for the real version, right now, taking one brave step forward. Because every fluent English speaker in the world, no matter how effortless they sound today, started exactly where you are standing right now, with simple words, with small sentences, with the courage to try. Let's go deeper on something that most people who study English never think about. The difference between knowing a word and owning a word. Knowing a word means you recognize it when you see it. You can look at it on a page and understand roughly what it means. Owning a word means something completely different. It means the word is available to you instantly without thinking, the moment you need it in a conversation. It means you can produce it, not just recognize it. And the gap between knowing a word and owning a word is enormous. Most traditional learning systems only take you to the knowing stage. They never take you to owning. That is why people can read English reasonably well and still not be able to speak it. The way to own a word is to use it repeatedly in real situations. Not just write it in a notebook. Not just read a definition. Actually use it. Say it out loud. Put it in a sentence that means something to you personally. Use it the next day in a different sentence. Use it again the day after. Repeat it enough times and it becomes yours. It stops being a word you have to think about and becomes a word you just have, ready and available whenever you need it. And this process, this movement from knowing to owning, is much faster with the 380 core words than with any other vocabulary, because these words come up constantly in almost every conversation, which means your brain gets natural repetition just by speaking and listening in English every day. Think about the word understand. How many times a day does a conversation give you a chance to use that word? I understand what you mean. I don't understand this part. Do you understand? Now I understand. Every single conversation is an opportunity to own that word more deeply. The same is true for need, help, think, feel, want, try, and every other core verb on the list. They are everywhere, and every time you use them, the connection in your brain gets a little stronger, a little faster, a little more automatic. Now, here's a question that comes up often and deserves a direct answer. What about the times when you simply do not have the word you need? When you are in the middle of a conversation and the exact word is not available? This happens to every speaker in every language, including native speakers. And the answer is not to stop and go silent. The answer is to describe. In English, describing instead of naming is called circumlocution, and it is one of the most useful communication skills you can develop. If you do not know the word elevator, you say the machine inside the building that takes you up. If you do not know the word pharmacy, you say the place where you buy medicine. If you do not know the word appointment, you say a time I agreed to meet someone. In every single one of these descriptions, you only need simple words from the core list. And native speakers understand immediately. In fact, many native speakers find this kind of describing charming and creative. Circumlocution removes the pressure of needing a complete vocabulary before having a conversation. It is a bridge. It is a way of saying, I do not have the exact word right now, but I have enough words to get there. And it works every single time, with patience and a smile. The willingness to describe, to reach for the concept even without the perfect word, is one of the most powerful things a language learner can do. There is also the question of reading in English, which many people underestimate as a tool for improving speaking. Reading and speaking might seem like completely separate skills, but they are far more connected than most people realize. When you read in English, your brain is absorbing sentence structure, word order, natural phrasing, and vocabulary in context. You are seeing how sentences are built. You are noticing how ideas connect, and all of that structural knowledge, absorbed through reading, becomes available when you speak. It transfers. Research in second language acquisition consistently shows that strong readers in a new language tend to develop stronger speaking skills than those who only practice speaking in isolation. The best reading material for building spoken English is not academic texts or complex novels. It is simple, conversational content, short stories, simple news articles, transcripts of conversations. The language in these materials is close to the language of real speech. The sentences are not too long, the vocabulary is accessible, and the ideas are clear. Starting with material at, or just slightly above the current level, and working up gradually, is the most efficient path. There is one more thing that deserves attention before everything here gets wrapped up, and it is the role of emotion in language learning. Emotion and language are far more connected than most people know. Research in neuroscience has shown that emotional engagement during learning dramatically increases the speed and depth at which information is stored in long-term memory. In other words, you remember things better when you learn them while you are feeling something, when you hear a word in a moment that moves you, when you read a sentence that makes you laugh or cry or feel surprised, when you have a conversation that actually matters to you. Those language moments go deeper into your memory than anything you learn while sitting bored at a desk. This is one of the reasons learning English through content you genuinely enjoy, whether that is comedy shows, dramatic films, sports commentary, cooking videos, travel documentaries, or music, is so effective. The emotional engagement is doing language work in the background without you even noticing. Your brain is building connections between the sounds and words of English, and the feelings and experiences those sounds and words create in you. That is powerful. That is something no grammar worksheet can replicate. So when choosing English content to consume, follow genuine interest and genuine pleasure. Watch the show you actually want to watch. Listen to the podcast that makes you curious. Read the article on the topic you already care about. Trust that your enjoyment is not a distraction from learning. It is the learning. Your brain knows what it is doing. Something else worth saying directly. The comparison trap is one of the most dangerous things a language learner can fall into. Seeing someone else speak English smoothly and fluently, and thinking, I will never be like that. Measuring your progress against people who have been speaking English for 10 or 20 years. Comparing your speaking today to where you wish you could be next year. None of these comparisons help, all of them hurt. The only comparison that is worth making is between where you are today and where you were last month. And if you practice daily, if you use the core vocabulary, if you build with sentence frames, if you consume English content regularly, that comparison will always be positive. Progress is guaranteed when the work is consistent. It may be slow some weeks, it may feel invisible, but it is happening. The brain is always building, always organizing, always getting better, even when you cannot see it yet. There is also the matter of finding opportunities to practice English in real life, which is easier today than at any point in human history. The internet has made it possible to connect with English speakers anywhere in the world at any time. Language exchange apps connect learners with native speakers who want to learn the learner's first language. Online communities built around every imaginable interest, from cooking to photography to hiking to business, are filled with people communicating in English. Social media platforms give anyone the ability to write in English, receive responses in English, and have small conversational exchanges with people from every corner of the planet. Every one of these is a practice opportunity. Every comment you write, every message you send, every reply you give, these are real uses of real language, and they build real skills. And then there is the practice that happens completely alone, thinking in English. Many advanced learners describe the moment they started thinking in English, rather than translating from their first language, as the turning point in their fluency. Thinking in English means that when you make a plan for the day, you form the thought in English. When you look at something interesting, you describe it to yourself in English. When you have a feeling, you reach for the English word first. This kind of internal practice is invisible from the outside, but it is profoundly powerful. It rewires the brain to use English as a real thinking tool, rather than just a performance. To start thinking in English, begin with the simplest possible observations. Look around the room and name what you see. There is a window. The window is open. The light is coming in. Those are 9 words, 7 of which are on the core list. Then move to simple actions. I am drinking coffee. It is hot. I like it. Then move to plans. Today I am going to go to the store. I need to buy food. I want to come home before it gets dark. None of this is impressive language, but all of it is real language use. And real language use, even simple and internal, builds real fluency over time. The journey of learning English is not a straight line. There are days when everything clicks and you feel unstoppable, like the language is finally opening up and you can feel yourself inside it. And there are days when you forget simple words you knew last week, when everything feels harder than it should, when progress feels like it has completely stopped. Both kinds of days are normal. Both are part of the process. The difficult days are not signs that you are failing. They are signs that your brain is reorganizing, consolidating, preparing for the next leap forward. Language learning researchers have a name for this, the plateau effect, and it is followed every single time by a sudden jump in ability. If you keep going, that is the only instruction that matters when it gets hard. Keep listening, keep speaking, keep using the words you know, keep building with the frames, keep consuming English in the ways you enjoy. The breakthrough is always closer than it seems on the hard days. And the moment it comes, when a conversation flows without effort, when you understand something without translating, when you express something complex with simple words and the other person nods and understands completely, that moment will make every hard day worth it. Language is one of the deepest human gifts. It is the tool that lets people share ideas, build relationships, express love, solve problems, tell stories, and understand the inner world of another person. To learn a new language is to gain access to a wider version of the world. To be able to speak English is to be able to participate in a global conversation that spans every country, every culture, every field of human knowledge and creativity. And all of that is reachable. While it is reachable with 380 words as the starting point, with sentence frames as the tools, with daily practice as the path, and with the simple, powerful, life-changing decision to begin.